All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Present is Mr. Geis, Mr. Ensman, Mayor Shag, Mr. McLaughlin, and myself. All right, so without further ado, Mr. Ensman.
Very good. 21 slides today, minus the heading on this. We're down to 20 slides, so it should go fairly quick, about 30 minutes or so. Utility Streets Committee meeting, April 15th, 2021. All right, savings from generation units. So we'll be discussing that here first thing this afternoon. So behind the meter generators are helping to reduce the overall cost per kilowatt by lowering the cost of transmission and capacity charges. Transmission rates have increased substantially over the last couple of years and are projected to continue to increase in the coming years. You'll see the projections on the next slide here, but we'll stay right here, Joe. So, but next slide, you'll see the projections on the transmission rates. So a reason for the approved transmission rate increases are due to the capital improvements to the AEP electric infrastructure. The proven ways to decrease the cost for transmission and capacity charges are to reduce the city's demand for electricity during the peak power times. So when we send out those peak power alerts, those are the, of course, those peak times for transmission and capacity charges. So ways to decrease the city's electric demand during these peak times: one, customers voluntarily reduce their electric consumption during the peak power times. Number two would be city operates the behind the meter generators. All right, here we go. So this slide here, you can actually see the transmission rates, somewhat steady there. If you look at it, 16, we had a little bit of a bump up there to year 17, then 18, 19, 20, fairly steady. But you look here at 19, 20, 21, you can see the substantial increases there. And going forward, getting out to 22, 23, some of those are projected going out that far, but you definitely see the large increase there in 19, 20, and 21. So that plays a major impact on our cost per kilowatt, because that's going to affect the purchase power cost that we receive. So again, when we receive the invoices, all the transmission costs, the ancillary services, capacity charges and such, those make up about 40% of the energy costs. So next slide here, Joe. So it's been challenging to offset the increased transmission costs over the last several years, but cost-saving measures to lower the generation and distribution rates, adjusting the balance levelization credit, and the increased behind-the-meter generation capacity has played a vital role in lowering and stabilizing the cost per kilowatt to the electric customers here in Shelby. So right down below here, the monthly transmission cost for the given year. So I want you to see this. In 2019, right around $65,000 per month to get the energy here. 2020, we're right about $81,000 a month. 2021, we're at $99,000 a month. This is per month. So I gave you an example there in 2021. There in the parentheses, you'll see the 149,175.20. So if we did not have transmission, or if we did not have the generators operating behind the meter, and the electric customers in town curtailing their electric demand, our transmission costs would be $149,175.20. So you can see we are reducing right around that $50,000 mark in this fiscal year with our generators. That's what the generators have done for us. So each month,
and that's monthly, right?
That is monthly, Nathan. That's correct. That's monthly. So again, the behind the meter generators is a proven way to control cost of the transmission and capacity. So next slide here, Joe. All right, so savings from the generating unit. So transmission charges. So I've talked about this in the past, the 1 CP or the 1 coincidental peak. So our transmission charges for the year are calculated on Shelby's electric demand during AEP's highest 1 hour demand reading for the year in their electric territory. So the city's overall meter reading during this 1 peak hour will set our transmission charges for the following year. So what we do this year is going to affect next year's challenges or charges. So the peak hours are determined between for the months of November and December, or sorry, November through October. So their calendar year will roll from November through October. So that 12-month period there. So the capacity charges are based off the 5 coincidental peaks, the 5 CPs. So the 1 CP is transmission. The capacity is based off the 5 coincidental peaks. So our capacity charges for the year are calculated on Shelby's top 5 electric demand hours during PJM's 5 highest demands in their electric territory. So you have AEP's territory, and with AEP also sits within the big picture of the PJM territory. So down below, there's portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, Maryland, District of Columbia, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and parts of North Carolina. That makes up the PJM territory. So some of those are all of the states, some are just portions of the state. So that group of states, whether it's just a small portion or all of that state, make up the PJM territory. So again, the transmission is based off of AEP's territory. The capacity charges are based off of the 5 top hours within the PJM territory. So there's 2 territories which we watch. So the city's overall meter readings during the 5 1-hour peaks will set the capacity charges for the following year. The peak hours are set between the months of June and September, that 4-month period there. So typically when we send out the peak power alerts, it's typically going to be in that June, July, August, September. So the transmission and capacity can run same months, same hour, same days and such. So, all right, savings from the generation units, savings from the behind the meter generators, called the acronym the BTMs. These are generators that are located behind the city's electric meter at the AEP substation. So out of the Howard substation on Vernon Road, the city of Shelby has actually 2 meters out there, but that is the city's electric meter. Individual customers, whether you're at your home or business, whatever, you have your meter, the city has meters at the substation. So that's the meter we're talking about here. So these generating units are operated during the peak power times to reduce the transmission and capacity charges associated with the delivery of electricity to the city. So the annual savings from the city's behind the meter generators, gross savings from the generators in 2020, $970,042.51. Expenses to operate the generators in 2020, $287,745.22. We discussed the cost for generation last month there. So the net savings from the generators, $682,297.29. So from operating the diesel generators and having the solar behind us, we're real close to that $700,000 a year in savings right now. So we have additional generation, the savings will get greater. So the next slide provides a breakdown of the transmission capacity savings per generator source. Next slide here, Joe. Oh, I'm sorry, here, let me put this one in here. So this was actually provided by AMP earlier this year, and this is kind of a rule of thumb. They're not exact numbers on here, but they're very, very close. They gave us some rounded numbers on this. So if we go down to, let's just look at the left-hand side here and see peak shaving year. If you go down to 2020, transmission year, so it affects this year. For the transmission capacity, it's split between years. It actually goes from June to May. It's kind of an odd calendar year, but if you kind of scroll over, you can see where 1 megawatt of production, provided you hit, you're actually producing what the generator can put out, and you hit that 1 peak hour, right around $106,000 could be saved just from that 1 megawatt on the transmission side of things. If you look at the capacity, there's $62,000. Again, these are rounded numbers. These are not exact, but these are good rule of thumb ballpark numbers here. So you can see that the benefit to actually having behind the meter generators. You kind of give you a real quick look at what the savings can be per megawatt. So that's what kind of wanted to show you this right here. So next slide here, Joe. All right, so current amount of behind the meter generation is 9,500 kW. So we have 5,900 kW diesel generators. These are Shelby owned and operated. We have 1,800 kW of what they call a JV2. It's a joint venture 2 diesel generator. This is a participating AMP joint venture unit. So again, that's what that JV stands for, joint venture. So it isn't just Shelby, there's multiple other communities that's involved in this program. And Shelby has 1,800 of the generation capacity behind our meter. So we get credit for that. And we also have 1,800 kW of solar that's AEP owned and operated behind the meter. So future thoughts to complement the current lineup of the generators. Battery energy storage system, BESS. What I've done right now, an outside energy consultant has been contacted and is conducting a comprehensive study to provide a detailed report to determine if a battery storage system would be a viable operating partner with our current generation lineup. What's nice about this, batteries can store excess energy during low demand periods and then release the energy during high demands, like those peak power times. So what's interesting about this, and we'll talk about this more after when the report comes in, but just a quick little thought on this. We have contracted power that we're obligated to purchase, stake and pay. There are times when our load, city's load, is lower than our contracted resources. So there's energy that we bought that's trying to get into Shelby. We don't need the energy. That energy does not make it to Shelby. It stops at a substation and it turns around and it's sold on the market. And majority of the time it is sold at a loss. So what the batteries could do, so if our system demand is lower than what our contracted resources are is for at that time, these batteries would allow that energy to come into the system. We would store it, then we would release it throughout the day. So instead of selling a lot of this energy at a loss, we could actually bring it in and store it, then turn around and sell it to the market to our customers at the marketed price. So, in addition to that, the batteries can be released during those coincidental peak times. So there's a program that we would implement, whether it's computerized or we do it ourselves. We would forecast, we'd watch the forecast on those 1 CP and 5 CP times when the transmission rates are being set and the capacity charges being set. We could discharge those batteries at a full rate for so many hours. So if it's a 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt battery storage system, we'd be able to discharge this system with its full load for a certain amount of hours. So that's the nice thing about batteries. I guess in some terms, people will say that it'll stretch the sunshine. So when the sun's not shining, it'll stretch it out with the batteries. So kind of an interesting concept. But another thought for generators would be natural gas units. Progress Drive Generation Station has 2 available sites for units. That site was chosen specifically for the natural gas location. There's a natural gas transmission line in front of the property, and just to the east of the property, there's an intermediate natural gas line. So that we've already spoke with Columbia Gas about it. We have a good understanding of what the tap-in fee would be to tap into the natural gas line to run over to the site. So that site was chosen for the specifics of the utilities around it. So that does have that capability. In addition to the battery and the natural gas generators would be solar production. There's still 16 acres of real estate that's available to the west of the existing solar field. So there we have that. Next slide here, Joe. Let's see what we have. All right. So a couple items here on the savings as well. So notes of interest here. I'll tell you what, before we get to this, is there any questions on the generators? Any thoughts or anything going on? Okay. Because I just want to mention here the notes of interest here, the preliminary quarterly electric rate adjustment for the May to July billing period is showing a reduction of just a little over 1%. We got to confirm these numbers, but it's showing right just slightly over 1% reduction. So again, even with transmission costs going up, we're cutting the cost, and the quarterly rate adjustment is showing a downward trend. So that's good news. Another savings is the balance levelization credit is also going to be implemented starting with the May utility bill. The credit increased from a 0.0020 to 0.0022. That's the complement of council passing that piece of legislation. So there's a higher credit coming on the utility bills as well. And if ordinance 11, 2021 passes the next two readings, the generation charge will be reduced from 0.0045 to 0.0040 on the July utility bill. So we do have some savings, three items of savings that'll be coming to our electric customers here real soon. Two right now and one hopefully here in the near future. So also discussions for generators or the savings or anything. There's a lot of information already shared. So
I don't have any questions. Do you, Ms. McLaughlin?
Okay, very good. All
Maybe,
right, next slide here, Joe.
maybe one comment,
Sure.
John.
Sure, Mayor.
I think with the demonstration of the transmission and capacity charges rising at the rate they are, just rate stabilization is no small feat. And I think that's kind of been overlooked to be able to kind of hold back this team of horses that's trying to run away. We've been able to, with council's approval and foresight, we've been able to, do some good stabilizing, and with a little bit of icing on the cake of actually a slight reduction. So I'm not much concentrating on the reduction as this stabilization has kept prices from running away on us, or rates running away on us. So I think that's maybe part of this untold story that we've been able to stabilize. And I think it's icing on the cake that the rates have gone down somewhat, and we would like to think we could reduce rates even further, but that is a tall task in this present environment.
Yes, I would agree. We've been able to stabilize and thankfully we've been able to reduce at the same time. There's small reductions, but in the big picture, they are reductions. They're not increases that we are being able to reduce, and and we will continue to find ways to reduce. So it's an ongoing challenge, but it's presently on our minds daily, it seems like. So we're constantly watching areas to where we can save and get cost of electricity under control, stabilized, and reduced.
Correct.
All good. Okay, moving on here. Sewer fund balance and the PCA, production cost adjuster. So the sewer fund balance, the Fund 400 is being monitored very closely. The fund balance is being negatively affected by the loss of revenue from two revenue sources: lack of sales, or water consumption. Sewer is built off of water consumption. So a direct impact from COVID-19. So residential water consumption was up just slightly over 2% in 2020 compared to 2019. Residents were staying home, washing hands and such. So commercial water consumption was down 3.72% in 2020 compared to 2019. Non-essential work establishments were idle during the stay-at-home order, or businesses shortened their work hours. This is the big one. Industrial water consumption was down 24.5% in 2020 compared to 2019. Non-essential work establishments were idle during the stay-at-home order, or businesses shortened their work hours. In 2019, the industrial customers accounted for almost 51% of the water sales. In 2020, industrial customers accounted for almost 44% of the water sales. So you can see there's a difference there. The percentage doesn't seem big, but it's a big number. So the lack of sales in 2020 resulted in a loss of sewer revenue $96,759.34 when compared to 2019 year sales. So almost $100,000 in lost revenue just from direct impact from COVID-19. All right, Joe, can you switch that over, please? Slide 12. There we go. Loss of revenue from the non-acceptance and reduction of leachate. Leachate is the wastewater generated from a landfill. During the upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant, the operations had to cease the acceptance of leachate to maintain the plant's limit parameters per the EPA operating permit. Round from leachate, we're going to go back several years here. 2016, a little over $91,000. 2017, we'll round up $72,000. 2018, $89,000. 2019, there's $35 in the financial reports. I'm not quite sure where that come from. It might have been a carryover, but just pretty much zero that out. 2020, we had just slightly over $24,000. So you can see the drastic loss in revenue in the last 2 fiscal years. Quite a bit of loss here. So I've had to build this loss. So a lot of these numbers are going to be estimated, but I feel pretty comfortable with these numbers that I'm going to present you with y'all here. But I did have to build this out because of the lack of, so I had to use a 3-year average, as you'll see right next to 2018 there, the 3-year average of $83,923. That's where we were averaging over 3 years for leachate. So the loss of revenue from the lack of water sales and the loss of leachate revenue just came in just in 2020 has a combined estimate loss of approximately $157,000. So my calculation on this from the previous slide, $96,759.34, and the loss of sales between 19 and 20, what I compare those to, plus $60,000 estimated loss in revenue leachate last year. So if we're kind of averaging right around that $84,000 in 3-year average, 2020 we brought in 24,000. That's the 60,000. So if you look at that, that's where I get 157,000. So the 156,759.34, I rounded that up to the 157. So you'll see down below there in parentheses, $60,000 was derived from the average revenue from 2016 through 2019. They had an $83,923 average minus $24,063.03 gives you the actual $59,860. So that's where I'm getting my numbers from. So again, I had to build this, but factoring in the loss of leachate revenue during the wastewater treatment plant construction phase in 2019, and another estimated $84,000, which you'll see that rounded number there, can be directed to the reduction of the sewer fund balance. So an estimated grand total for the revenue loss from leachate and loss of water sales over the last few years is approximately $241,000. So if you look at their loss in revenue sales, which is $97,000, then you factor in the loss of leachate, you can see why the sewer fund balance is taking a direct loss for the last 3 years. So Joe, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that. So historical sewer balances here, for the 400 fund balance beginning January 2019, fund balance is $531,695. Fund balance beginning of 2020, $350,100. Fund balance beginning of this year, $212,711. So you can see the direct impact of leachate, and now we're seeing the impact of the loss of water sales, which just directly affects sewer. Again, it's right around $97,000 last year. So when figuring the estimated revenue losses back into the beginning of this year's fund balance, it would put the fund balance back to its normal balance. So if you look at the beginning of the fund balance of this year, 212,744 plus the 241, we're going to put us back to that 453,744. So, and again, these are speculative numbers since I had to build the revenue, but it shows the accountability for the estimated loss. I feel pretty comfortable with these numbers, looking at historical numbers from leachate and historical numbers from our fund balance and our water consumption and sewer build. I feel pretty good with this number, but these are a direct reflection of what's taking place in the sewer fund balance. So I know it's concerning. I'm concerned with this. We're watching this very closely. With leachate, it's not going to get much better. You'll see here in this note, future revenues from leachate is questionable, especially from Rumpke, because that's where the majority of our leachate comes from. Rumpke is constructing their own facility to treat their leachate. So deliveries are projected to cease in 2022. So they are currently in their construction phase over there, and reports from the wastewater treatment plant superintendent, they are estimating in next year they will not have to send out any of their leachate to any of the local treatment facilities. Saying that, the last bullet here on this slide, in fourth quarter of this year, the wastewater treatment plant is scheduled to start receiving wastewater from a very large industrial user in town. And this will help offset the loss of the leachate revenue and then some. So we are working with one of our largest industrial customers in town. They currently have their own treatment facility that they're going to be unable to discharge their effluent to their source of it's a tributary of the Black Fork. So they're going to start shipping their wastewater over to us come fourth quarter this year. So that's going to enter into our sanitary sewer system, then make its way into the sewer treatment plant. So they will be billed for that. So that will help with the loss of revenue from the leachate. So we have some bad news there, but some countering good news as well. So, all right. Next slide here, Joe. Okay, again with the sewer fund balance in the PCA, there was a large encumbrance during the month of March. The administrative fees accounting for $54,000 for the year were encumbered. So that had a direct impact on the finances for end of March. Interesting items to note, the wastewater treatment plant is operating more efficiently. So the quarterly production cost adjuster, the PCA, is trending down. Chemicals, particularly the gaseous chlorine, is no longer being used to disinfect the effluent water before it is being discharged to the river. Ultraviolet lights are now being used to sterilize the effluent wastewater before it's being discharged to the river. So during the upgrade, we removed the gaseous chlorine to treat or disinfect the effluent water, and we switched over to ultraviolet lights, which now sterilize. So we used to disinfect, now we sterilize the water before it goes to the river. So I mentioned that because soon we're going to be incurring a cost to replace the UV light bulbs on an annual basis. We used to have gaseous chlorine, which we would put into the quarterly production cost adjuster. Ultraviolet lights have replaced the gaseous chlorine, and currently the sewer PCA does not call for a recovery of the operation of the UV system. So with that, costs will soon be occurring. We're going to be looking at $14,000 this year, 2021, and next year in 2022, and then going forward about $10,000 every year thereafter to change the bulbs. The bulbs need to be changed to make sure that the effluent water is sterilized before it hits the river. That is a parameter which that's in our operating permit, and we have to meet those limitations in that. So ultraviolet light, the bulbs do need to be replaced. I spoke with the superintendent, and we're going to put this on an annual basis, change out of how we're going to maintain these lights to make sure that they keep their integrity and be able to do the sterilization as they're supposed to be doing. So a thought here for the committee would be the recovery of the cost to operate and maintain the UV system in the quarterly production cost adjuster. Is this something that we want to entertain, to implement into the production cost adjuster to recover the cost for the UV bulbs? You can see it's a pretty substantial cost, and it is cost to operate the plant. We used to have the chlorine. Chlorine is no longer there, so that's been removed from the language is still in the PCA, but there is $0 to recover. So now we'll be looking at the expense for the bulbs. So is this something we want to entertain to put language into the PCA to recover the maintenance cost of the UV system, particularly the bulbs?
I believe so.
Okay, very good. All right, additionally to that, the sewer PCA lists natural gas on the cost recovery items. Natural gas is not currently being used at the wastewater treatment plant, but diesel fuel is being used as an operational component to heat the digesters when the operating temperature drops below the treatment range. We use methane that's naturally produced at the plant to heat the digesters, but when we do not produce enough methane, we have to resort over to burning the diesel fuel. So that is an operational cost. We just had to transfer some money into that particular line item because we're using quite a bit of diesel fuel right now. So that's another thought for the committee here is, do we want to recover the cost for diesel fuel that's being used in the digesters in the quarterly production cost adjuster?
I think so as well, but is there a way that we can, I mean, does it have to be that specific? Can we make it general?
Well, we currently have diesel fuel in as a line item, but the operations of the plant uses diesel fuel for their tractors, their backhoe, their tractors and such.
Right.
So unfortunately,
I'm
diesel
saying,
fuel is just general.
can we write the PCA to where, yeah, can we write the PCA to where it's general specifically to operations so that anything that's within the operations is included in the PCA, or do we really have to list it out like line by line by line?
In discussion with finance, they had mentioned we probably need to consider making this more direct, very specific in the diesel fuel, say digester diesel fuel versus diesel fuel for the lawn tractors and such. So because diesel fuel for lawn tractors
Okay.
could be for maintenance.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Mhm.
I get that.
Okay, so yeah, so in discussion with finance, yeah, we would have to write legislation that would include diesel fuel for the digesters, of course, and include the UV system in there as well. But in addition to that, there would have to be 2 line items created as well that would be specific to these particular cost recovery mechanisms. Is that the items that are listed within the PCA is what we utilize here in this office. It's very specific, whether it's sludge, electric, lab supplies, or such. We use those. We use the monthly expense receipt sheets to decide for what kind of cost that needs to be recovered. So,
Hey,
okay,
may I step?
sure. Absolutely, Mayor.
Nathan, were you on board when this PCA was first kind of established? Or how many years ago was that, John? I just asked 2 people 2 questions.
I'm going to say 2009, 2010.
Yeah, I think I was on council then, and it seems like Christina Thompson was the one who introduced that to us, I think.
Mhm.
And I think the idea was kind of like you're saying, it was, the chemical side of things, maybe non-employment related costs, and other things, insurance and so forth, are not included in this. So trying to capture some of those production costs in a very specific ways, and maybe that gets to your question, Nathan. It was kind of more of a narrow beam of detailing where these production costs were coming from and how they could be recovered. Before the PCA, of course, we would have to raise rates periodically, and so the PCA kind of has helped us stretch some of those things out one way or another if the production costs went down, but that doesn't happen very often.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that helps give a little background to that.
I think it does. Yes. And I can bring this to the committee next month as well, a little bit more detail on the production cost adjuster. So,
Yeah.
because the quarterly PCA is being adjusted next week, so it's not in this quarter, so it'll give us a little bit more time to discuss and implement and have legislation prepared for the next quarter adjustment. So, okay, very good. All right, slide 15 there, Joe. Okay, pollinating field update. Progress is being made for the design and development of the pollinating field at the former Reservoir Number 1 site. Several meetings and site visits have produced a specific planting design to encourage a successful soil condition for the pollinating seed. The site has been staked. Approximately 20 acres of the former reservoir site will be planted. Steps to encourage the best soil conditions. Site will be sprayed with a herbicide to kill the grass cover. Planting soybeans this spring, harvesting soybeans in the fall, frost seeding the pollinating field in the winter months between December and March. And there's a memorandum of understanding. The law director has written an MOU to establish a partnership between the city of Shelby and the Shelby City School District for the development, preparation, and planning of the pollinating field. The VOAG instructor, Randy Eisenhower, and students from Shelby City Schools will be assisting in the development of the pollinating field. The Shelby City School Board will be reviewing and voting on the MOU at the next scheduled board meeting. And I did drop off that MOU over to Superintendent Mr. Tim Carvin here this morning, so he has that for his board to review as well. So, and I believe they meet next Monday, as we meet with council next Monday as well. So, okay, slide 16 there, Joe. Lead service line replacement. The Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, Office of Financial Assistance of the Ohio EPA, is accepting nomination forms for the purpose of replacing lead service lines. The program funding details. Offered as a principal forgiveness, and this is EPA's terminology for the meaning of a grant. So principal forgiveness is a grant. So up to $1 million per applicant per year. Nominations accepted until EPA's planning year 2022. Funding must be allocated by June of 2022. And $20 million has been approved for the lead service line replacement principal forgiveness program. And funding is issued on a first come, first served basis. Submittal of a nomination form for the replacement of 41 lead service lines in the West Main Street business corridor has been populated. This area has been chosen due to the upcoming downtown revitalization project that is scheduled to start this fall. What we're trying to do here is stay ahead of the enhancement project. Just as a note here, all lead service lines will eventually be mandated to be replaced with copper lines. It's just a matter of time. So I mean, there's already discussions there, and that's the reason why the EPA is working right now to try to get these programs implemented. So if the project is submitted and approved and can be implemented before the enhancement project is complete, it will prevent the beautification project from being disturbed in the future. So what we're trying to do here is submit this lead service line project over to the Ohio EPA for their review and hopefully be approved. And if so, late summer here, we'd be able to start this project. So next slide here, Joe, 17. So the project area, we're looking just west of the West Side Square to just east of the East Side Square on Main Street. So just outside the squares, if you will. So there's gonna be 41 open cuts that's gonna make it for an unsightly construction zone. It's supposed to be in the central business corridor. But there's 41 of these lines. We've already did the research. We've been to business to review what type of material they have. Is it galvanized? Is it copper? Is it lead? 41 of the downtown water service lines have been designated as lead and need to be replaced. So there's 41 open cuts that would take place within that construction zone. The engineer's estimated cost for the lead service line replacement project is $311,200. Again, if the project nomination is approved, the project will be paid for by the Ohio EPA's principal forgiveness program. So emergency legislation is prepared for the April 19th council meeting to authorize the mayor to submit the nomination form. Okay. All right, wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The final payment to CT Consultants is due for the work completed during the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The amount due is $66,248.33. The final payment was agreed to be deferred by both parties until the final punch list was satisfied by the wastewater treatment plant superintendent. The punch list has been completed, and emergency legislation is prepared for the April 19th council meeting to pay the invoice to CT Consultants. Okay, 19 there, Joe. Community gardens. The community garden plots have been tilled and are ready for the planting season. Garden communications are posted on the city website. I do got a little thank you note there to the Shelby Daily Globe, if they could please post this on in their paper as well. So thank you, David, if you're listening, and if you get this, thank you very much. The garden plots are located on the north side of the water treatment plant on North Gamble. Gardeners are permitted to drive along the garden plots to access their plots. Please, we're asking the gardeners to please refrain from driving in the grassy area after rainy events to avoid damaging the lawn. Rain barrels are located at the front of the tool shed for watering their plants. Gardening tools are available as well. Tools are located in the tool shed. Borrow any of the tools, please visit the utilities office to have a key assigned out to that gardener. And residents seeking to reserve a plot or have questions about the garden can call the utilities office for more information. All righty, slide 20, change order, light plant property demolition. The demolition work to the now former outbuilding south of the light plant is complete. 2 change orders were needed for the project. $10,000 to excavate and dispose of several large pieces of concrete. Foundation was needed, and $1,530 for asbestos abatement was also needed. So bid amount to demolish the outbuilding was $101,850. We total in the change orders. Total project cost $113,380. Expenses were paid from 602, which is the light debt reserve. And legislation is prepared for the April 19th council meeting. 2 notes here. It's kind of interesting. 2 parties have come forward with interest in the 36 Mansfield Avenue property. And that's the property we just discussed. That's the former car wash, beer dock, ice plant, and maintenance building location. So since the demolition, and actually just within the last week, we've had 2 interested parties in that property. Next, the next demolition project I'm working on here would be, I'm planning to present the removal of the smokestack to council for a 22-year project. All right. Last slide here, Joe. Salt bid. All right, Ohio Department of Transportation is accepting salt purchasing submittals for the 2021-2022 salting season. Purchasing parameters requires to purchase at least 90% of the submitted tonnage and purchase up to 110% of the submitted tonnage. And legislation is prepared for the April 19th council meeting to submit the purchase of 800 tons from the ODOT salt bid program. Additionally, future legislation will be prepared to purchase 800 tons of salt from the Richland County salt bid program as well. And as we know, normal salting requirements during a typical winter is right around 1,600 tons. So that's why we split it up this year. We split it 800 to the Ohio Department of Transportation and 800 tons for the Richland County salt bid. So, and that is a quick 20-minute slide presentation. So there we go. A lot of information, as always, with the utilities. So threw a lot at the committee, as always. Any thoughts, concerns, comments, questions? I didn't copy.
So you have any questions on Mr. McLaughlin?
Nathan, I'm not sure what you're trying to state there a little bit ago, but it come in extremely robotic, so we're not quite sure what you said, other than if Mr. McLaughlin had anything to say. Okay. All righty. Well, that is the presentation for the April's Utility Committee meeting. So, anything? Okay. Nathan's stating he has no more questions. So, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Very good. All righty. Thank you, gentlemen.